Hello everyone and welcome back. I'm John and this is Life Happens, Let's Fix It. On today's episode we're going to learn how to build cheap shop storage cabinets. If you've ever been to Lowe's or Home Depot and you've looked at their rolling storage cabinets for the garage, you know they're very expensive. $400 or $500 for one cabinet. Well, today I'm going to show you how to build two cabinets for less than the price of one at the big box store. And be sure to stick around and follow me through the whole episode. I'm going to share 3 money-saving tips on how you can make your cheap storage cabinets even cheaper. So thanks for stopping by. Let's get started. For most of my plans, this is where I start, in SketchUp. I create a drawing of my project so I can make sure and find any mistakes before they happen. And just as an example, when I was designing this project, I looked in here to make sure everything was lining up, and I noticed that this drawer, I had raised the side too high and it was hitting this particular support piece. So I was able to readjust it, move it down a little bit, and save myself that headache before I even started the project. So I highly recommend having plans for your project. Now if you don't know how to use SketchUp, that's no problem. Many of the projects you see on YouTube have plans available that you can buy very inexpensively, some of them under $10. And believe me, $10 is a small price to pay for the amount of time it takes to do these design work in SketchUp. I do it mainly because I enjoy the design process, but that may not be for you, in which case getting plans is a great answer. For this particular cabinet, I drew inspiration from Brad Rodriguez on his YouTube channel, Fix This, Build That. And this particular plan, if you want to get it from his website, is only $9. Now I took his plans and modified it and customized it for my shop by adding wheels and adding a 4th drawer at the top. So you have 3 options. Actually, you can design your own project in SketchUp. You can buy plans from somebody else and build them exactly as listed, or you can get plans from someone else and tweak them or modify them to meet your needs. Next, after I finish my design in SketchUp, I use SketchUp as well to lay out my pieces and find out how many pieces of plywood I need. So after I laid out all the pieces for 2 cabinets, I ended up needing 3 pieces of 3/4 inch plywood and 2 pieces of 1/2 inch plywood. And another very helpful thing I do in SketchUp is color code my pieces. So I know, for example, that these pink pieces correspond to the drawer bottoms in my project. I can easily look at the colors and tell which piece goes where. And this really helps when you're cutting out the pieces and labeling them for what they go to. And one last thing I'd like to point out. On these 3 drawers, you can see I've represented my full extension drawer slides with just a rectangular piece that looks like wood, but this is actually representing the metal drawer slides I ordered off of Amazon. What I forgot when I ordered the drawer slides was that I had added this 4th drawer when I customized the plans. So instead of ordering another drawer slide, I found a really interesting video by John Hayes, and I'll link to him down in the description below. But he had a very nifty way of creating drawer slides from plywood. So that's what you can see on this drawing, is a piece of plywood cut with some slots, and then adding some runners on the side of the drawer and a matching set of runners on the side of the cabinet to make our own drawer slides. So I'll be showing you that a little more up close when we get into the build. So enough of SketchUp. Let's get out to the workshop and start cutting some wood. Alright, getting started on my base cabinet project. First step is to break my big sheets down into smaller sheets, which I've labeled as kind of a sub-assembly, and I've marked the factory edges. And that's a tip I got from Brad Rodriguez on Fix This, Build That. Great channel. Be sure to check him out. Once I get these broken down into the sub-assemblies, then I'll cut them into smaller parts and label them with their part numbers. So this build had a lot of parts. If I had not labeled them, I would have easily gotten confused on what was going on. So I highly recommend on a project like this, get you some post-it notes. I just went to Walmart and bought a pack of post-it notes, and every piece I slapped a post-it note on it and labeled it with a part number corresponding to my parts list and my build diagrams. Now I'm cutting the drawer bottoms to their final size. I cut them a little bit oversized when I was breaking down the big panels of plywood, and that way if there was a banged up edge or something, I had a second chance to clean that up. So with each of these drawer bottoms, I'm inspecting the edges, deciding which edge to trim off of to get it to its final part dimension. Now moving over to the miter saw, I've got a makeshift stop block to cut all my drawer sides to the exact same dimensions. Now it's time for some pocket hole joinery. So this is all the drawer sides, and I'm putting pocket holes in the front and back pieces. So the back pocket holes will face the rear of the cabinet, so you'll never see those. And then the pocket holes in the front pieces will be covered up by the false drawer fronts. So this is really strong joinery. It's really easy and quick, and all the pocket holes get hidden at the end of the day. So I have to apologize here. I failed to get footage of me putting the main body of the cabinet together. But it's basically pocket hole screw joinery construction, and I'm going to go over that in detail in just a minute when I show you how I put the drawers together. So this is the view from the front of the cabinet, and the top and bottom are the same with these three pieces just pocket holed into the side. And here's a view from the back where you can see the pocket holes are again facing the back, so they'll be hidden after I attach the back. All right, it's drawer assembly time. All right, the first step is to lay out all the sides with the pocket holes facing out on the front and back. And then just clamp the sides together to hold everything in place while you put the pocket screws into where they need to go. I chose not to use glue on the side, but if you want to do that, it'll just make your drawer that much stronger. So basically, I'm just putting a pocket hole screw into each pocket hole, being careful not to tighten it too much, just till it's snug, and then just work your way on 6 screws on this side, and then turn it around to the back and put 6 screws on the other side. Now grab a scrap piece of sandpaper and let's just give it a quick sanding on each drawer to knock off the rough edges. Now it's time to glue the bottoms on our drawers. Just add a bead of glue around the entire bottom, spread it with your glue brush, making sure to get it all spread out evenly. These are some heavy-duty drawers that are going to be holding some heavy equipment, so I want to make sure I get a good glue joint on this drawer. Now grab your drawer bottom and set it on and start nailing it. Start on one side and make sure it's flush. And once you get that nailed, find an adjoining side and twist the drawer bottom slightly if you need to make sure that those two sides are square. After that, you can just go around and fill in the nails. And don't forget to grab a sponge and clean out the glue squeeze out from the inside of the drawer. In these tight corners, that can be a real pain to get out after it dries. So I didn't videotape the putting on the extension slides here, but basically what I did, I'll walk you through it, it's easy enough. First thing I figured out ahead of time what the spacing should be, and I cut me a spare block of plywood here for a spacer, and just put that in there. Did that, and the key is you want the spacing on each side to be the same from the top and bottom. So use that on both sides, and then the other two are equally spaced like that. The other thing is when I got my instructions that came with these extension sliders, they said the front was supposed to be 2 millimeters off the front here. So those are set in just a hair. You can see those are just barely set in. And then the other thing I'll point out is that it works much easier if you lay these on the side when you're working. And then I just did 3 screws. One here, and one there. Okay, now that we got our drawers done, we need to put the back on this cabinet, and then we'll turn this around and mount the drawers onto the drawer slides. All right, now we're ready to put the drawers in. This first drawer, I'm going to space it 1/4 inch off the bottom. So I've got these spacers to sit in here. And I've picked out the drawer space I want to be on the front, because I'm going to cover that with a faux false front. So I ran into a little trouble here. Basically, since I didn't have a full bottom on the cabinet, I had to get me some spacers to put under the drawer in the void there. And then I still had more problems after that, and come to find out there was some screws, some of the pocket hole screws were sticking out of the side a little bit and keeping it from sliding into the cabinet smoothly. So I just grabbed a file and filed those. They were just sticking out a little bit, so I filed them down a little bit, made it smooth, and then everything went in just fine. That's much better. Set. Let's go ahead and pull these drawer slides out. The reason these are a little hard to come out, they've got a positive stop on the back. It's a little rubber piece that they kind of pop over, and that way your drawers, if they're slightly tilted, won't fall out with all your stuff in them. It kind of locks it shut. All right, so we'll double check that those are sitting on my 1/4 inch blocks. We'll set these back about 2 millimeters per the instructions. What I'm going to do is go ahead and put 2 screws in. To get the last 2 screws in on each side, go ahead and pull the drawer out so that you can then turn around and get to those last 2 screws on each side. next step, from my plans, I knew it needs to be 1 5/8 inches between each drawer. So I cut some blocks to 1 5/8 inches. I'll put 2 of those on the front, and then put 2 about halfway back. So my height's set. I'll just take the next drawer and set it on top of that. Now it's time for me to share with you money-saving tip number 1 on how you can build cheap shop storage cabinets. Tip number 1 is to recycle old wooden furniture. Whether that's in your shop or from your house or something you picked up on the side of the road, there's lots of good hardwood out there. For this project, I had an old kid's workbench that I was ready to get rid of, but I broke it down and got some really nice lumber out of it. All right, here's all the lumber I've got out of that kid's workbench. There's some really nice 1-inch pine here. And this is the actual piece that I've been cutting the strips off of to go around the edge of my shop storage cabinet. Now it's time to build the top of our cabinet. So right here I'm just taking this old piece of the kid's workbench and cutting some 1.5 by 3/4 trim to attach to the top piece of the cabinet. All right, now that I've got my edging ripped to size, I'm going to mark my widths here and then cut these to the right size. So I'm going to attach the 2 side pieces first, and then I'll mark and cut the front piece. And while it's drying, I'll go ahead and mark my front piece. you want to see how I made my own wood filler to touch up this top, check out the video shown in the card in the top right corner here, where I go into all the details on how to make your own wood filler with supplies you already have on hand. So in the previous video clips, I had the top just sitting on top, and that was just so I could get the sides put on and make sure everything lined up properly. So now I've removed the temporary top, and I'm just putting in some bottom supports here to beef up the top a little bit and make it a little bit more sturdy. Tip number 2 is make your own drawer slides out of scrap wood you've got in your shop. As mentioned earlier in the video, this is where I get into making my plywood full extension drawer slides. Okay, so for my version of the drawer slides, I'm going to use 4 pieces at 18 inches long out of 1/2 inch plywood by 1 3/4 inches tall. And then my slides will be 5/8 of an inch by 1/4 inch by 18 inches. And that's because of the space I had to fit in wouldn't quite fit the 2-inch high versions from John Hise's design. And then also my offcut ended up only being just shy of 18 inches. So it's like 17 5/8. So I'm going to go with that, and we'll make it work. It may just not slide out all the way, but I think it'll be good enough. As you can see, I have a small shop, so when I need a router table, I just pull out this piece of countertop that I modified to fit my router here. So we'll get this set up to do the next part of the full extension drawer slides. I've done the setup for my router table and cut on a test piece, and basically I've got a mark here to show where to start the plunge, and then I just run it along that, and I've got a stop block on this end to stop it where it needs to stop on this side. So I'll just run all my pieces through for that. Now, to the diligent observer, you will pick up a mistake I made here. I was not supposed to route this 1/2 inch slot all the way across the drawer slide. It was only supposed to go halfway. And you'll notice here in the second side, I had figured out my mistake and corrected it. So now on the second side, I'm only cutting the 1/2 inch slot halfway across the drawer slide. Now ultimately I left it and it was okay, but it did make the drawer slides not quite as strong as they could have been. And the other thing to remember is in a minute I'm going to be cutting the 1/4 inch slot all the way through on both sides, and I did do it only halfway on both slots. All right, so the first set of grooves that I cut were 1/2 inch wide and only went halfway through. And this next set is a 1/4 inch wide and goes all the way through. And that's going to basically create a channel for a bolt to slide in. And you'll see how it works here in just a little bit. Now we'll just do a little bit of cleanup to smooth out the rough edges and get the little pieces of plywood sticking out, and then these will be done. Here's what both sides of your drawer slides should look like. All right, for the sliders that are going to sit on top and below, I need to use hardwood. So basically I just grabbed all my scraps. I got every scrap that was at least as long as my slide and at least a 1/4 inch thick. So this is all going to come out of scrap wood. So it's a good thing I saved all those scraps, right? So if you think about the design of these sliders, the edge of the cabinet, the edge of the drawer, and then the 4 runners are going to create a tunnel for this piece to slide back and forth in. So when you're sanding and getting this thing painted up and smooth, think about all the pieces that are going to be touching each other. So on this piece, it's going to be the 2 sides, and then the top and the bottom are going to be sliding in the channel. And then on the runners, only one side of each runner is actually going to be inside that tunnel. So pick the flat side, smooth side, and get it sanded up, and then make a mark so you remember which side is smooth. And then just put, coat of poly on everything, give them a light sanding to make them slide smoothly inside that tunnel. Now it's time to mount our homemade full extension drawer slides. And basically we'll put first a guide rail here up in the top. We'll flush it up with the front, and then put it in with some glue and some 3/4 inch brad nails. We've got this one with 2 layers of tape on each side to give it just a little bit of spacing. So that'll go on next. As we'll just hold it up as a spacer actually. We'll mount that, use this as a spacer, and then put the second rail underneath. Clean up some of this glue. So now the one with no tape should slide in there. So yeah, I didn't check before I nailed these rails in, so pulling them out and putting them where they're supposed to be. So learn from my mistakes and double check and think through what you're doing before you, especially before you glue and nail. That first top rail was supposed to be spaced 1/4 inch down, so I forgot to put my 1/4 inch rail in there as a guide to get it spaced right. All right, I had a couple nails that didn't sink in all the way, so you need to make sure there's nothing protruding from the edge of these runners. So I got a file and just smooth everything out. And there's also a couple nails sticking out between the runners that I had to file down too. All that to say, make sure everything's smooth and clean so that your rails have nothing blocking them from sliding smoothly. All right. Now that I've got all my rails attached, I'm going to go ahead and put a little car wax on there. So I'm just going to put them on the top and bottom of these rails where they'll be touching the slider. And then also all in between here on this wood. All right, so I'll do that on both sides of the drawer. Same thing on the rails in the cabinet. And finally we'll do both sides of these slider pieces. So now I've got a machine screw. So we're going to put a machine screw in the drawer on the top. All right, now we need to line our drawer slide up at the front of the drawer. And then we're going to mark in this top rail right in the center of this groove at the end. And then that will go into the drawer. And that way when the drawer slides out, it'll keep it from falling out. And then we'll move this slide inside the cabinet and put another screw in the bottom rail inside the cabinet. So I'm going to show you both of those. I've got a little piece of tape to mark my depth. And I'm going to just try and hit on my pencil mark, keep it right in the center of the groove. Mark it, and then finish it up. So now the front of the drawer is on this side now. We turned it around. Same thing, mark the hole here. And that's just a 5/32 inch drill bit that I'm using. And then my machine head screw is just a pan head M5-.80 by 20. And if you're using Imperial screws, then you want to do a number 10 machine screw. And these are about 3/4 of an inch long, in this case 20 millimeters. All right, I've already drilled my holes on the inside of the cabinet, the same way I did in the drawers, just on the bottom rail. And now I'm just threading in the machine screw. So the only purpose for this machine head screw is to keep the rail from sliding out. So you don't want it tightened up so much that it's binding the rail. So one of the critical measurements with these drawer slides is that you have exactly a 1/2 inch clearance between the side of the drawer and the side of the cabinet. And that makes the rails on the drawer and the cabinet match up pretty tightly and create that tunnel for that middle rail to slide back and forth in. All right, now we can attach the drawer to the drawer slides, again using the same machine screw. And again, you don't want it tight, you just want it so that the head of the machine screw is not sticking out past the surface of that rail slide. That's pretty cool. All right, now I'm going to give my drawer fronts, the faux fronts, a quick sanding. But I need to make sure I keep these, when I cut these panels, I cut them all as one piece so the grains line up. So I need to make sure I keep these in order. Our next step is to mark for our handle in the middle of the drawer and drill the holes. attach the drawer fronts, we're going to use the holes we drilled for the handles to temporarily hold this to the front of the drawer until we can get inside and then attach the screws from the inside. Now we can pull the drawer out, drill a pilot hole in the counter bore for some screws inside. Make sure you set your counter bore so you don't go through the front. I'm going to set my next drawer. I'll use my 1/8 inch spacers, which is the same width as the kerf on the saw I used to cut these, so the grain pattern will match up exactly. Are you ready for money saving tip number 3 on how to build cheap shop storage cabinets? Tip number 3, here's a way to get cheap casters for your rolling cabinets, and I'm going to show you here in a minute. So here's a rolling dolly you can buy at Harbor Freight for $10.99, and sometimes you can even get it on sale for even less. But these are 2-inch casters, and they're perfect for this project. So here's one that I've removed them from, and those are actually already on the first cabinet. And I'm going to show you in a minute how I took them off and used them on my cabinet. All right, so to mount these casters, I got some 1-inch, these are just 1-inch pocket hole screws, but that's just what I had. The head is too small, so I found, raided my washer bin, and I just found some washers that will keep that from sliding through. Just wanted to point out that the 1-inch screws I used did stick through the other side, so I had to file them down to keep the drawer from catching on them. Another option would just be to double up on your washers, or better yet, get the right size screw for the job. Maybe a 3/4 inch would probably be the best choice here. All right, the final step is doing the finishing work. And so I'm getting ready to put on a coat of water-based polyurethane. And when that first coat dries, I'll give it a light sanding and do a second coat. And then for the top, there was some imperfections and some mistakes I made that I wanted to cover up. And so I decided to put some stain on the top to kind of hide some of those a little better. So I put a coat of stain on there, and then again another 2 coats of water-based polyurethane on the top, and then add the handles, and after that we'll be done. And in just a second I'll show you a picture of the finished product. Well, here's our finished cheap shop storage cabinet. It's mobile. I've used it for a mobile workspace here. Keep all my most used tools here in the top. Another strategy that I've actually used on this particular cabinet is that I've got all my I've got my saw, circular saws in the bottom. Then I've got my jigsaw and my sawzall and my saw blades. You know, this is all, if you haven't figured it out yet, saw related. And then in this drawer, I've got all my drills and drill chargers and corded drills and drill accessories. And then the top drawer, again, all my drill bits, and big drills that I use from time to time, drill batteries. Right now I've got some router bits in here, but I'll probably end up moving those to somewhere else. But the goal here is to kind of keep all my related items in this rolling cabinet. Well, there you have it, guys. I appreciate you watching and hope that gave you some good ideas on how you can build your own cheap shop storage cabinets. And again, take time to do a little design work, customize your cabinets to fit your specific needs for your shop. I post videos every week on this channel, so make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell if you like what you've seen, so you get notified immediately when I post new videos. And also, hit the like button if you like this video. It helps me know which things you like and which things you don't like, so I can produce better videos that suit what you want to see. Check out the links to the other YouTubers I've mentioned in this video down in the description below. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next week on Life Happens, Let's Fix It.